Okay, here we are going live. Let's see, make sure everything is working. Yeah, that's working. Okay, I think we got it down just right. And today we are talking about contracts. And should photographers have contracts? That is a great question. And I have a few thoughts. And I want, of course, your questions in the comments below if you're catching us on the replay. And of course, if you catch me live, you can ask me questions directly about really a lot of business topics that photographers have. But the focus is pricing photography and creating a profitable photography business. That is a main core of this channel. And of course, this show, this live show, I'm on at least twice a week, Fridays noon Eastern Standard Time, and another time, usually a Tuesday or Wednesday around noon Eastern Standard Time. If you're unsure, hey, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon, and you'll be notified when I go live. So that's the cool thing about it. And the goal of this, of course, is to make your studio, your photography business more profitable, but also to make our industry just a little bit stronger. Knowledge really does help. And the more people who have the base knowledge and understand how to run a profitable photography business, it makes a difference for all of us, especially within our own communities. If you can be an advocate and even share some of this information with people who you think might find it valuable. Okay, so let's get into our topic of the day. And that, of course, is, should you have a contract? And the short answer, the quick answer, of course, is yes. But let's dig in deeper in terms of why. And are there times when you really don't need a contract, or maybe you can get away without a contract? We'll talk a little bit about that. But here's the thing. What's in a contract? Why do you have a contract? And first of all, it's nice just to lay out your process. And when you lay out your process, you set up expectations for the person who's purchasing the photography. It's really important, because if you can set the expectations up in the very beginning, it really does help diminish some of the possible problems you might have in the future. And not only that, when you present the contract and when you talk to people ahead of time and establish the expectations, not only your expectations, but the client's expectations, and really work through this and put that all in a contract. And sometimes those elements really just have to do with checking a box that is in your contract. Now, no matter what you do, and I'm going to share a number of ideas, thoughts. These are my opinions. I am most certainly not an attorney. I am a photographer, and these are my experiences that I'm sharing with you. So if you have a contract, or you're thinking about putting together your own contract, there are a lot of templates online. I would definitely look at reputable organizations, photography organizations that have copies of template contracts. You can do that through Professional Photographers of America, American Society of Media Photographers. There are a number of places in which you can find contracts. But no matter what, especially if you make adjustments on your own and try to customize that contract, I would highly recommend you have an attorney take a look at that contract just to make sure it fits with not only traditional norms within the law, but local laws or state laws or province laws. I mean, it is important because each state has specific laws, and some things may seem logical to you, like this should be the way it goes, but it may not be the correct way of presenting it. And if you don't do something specific or state something in a certain way, you could, or just by adding something in the contract, you could be breaking the law, and that you do not want to do. You don't want your contract to be null and void because you don't have the right language in that contract. Okay, another thing for contracts, as well as proposals. I mean, start off with the proposal and make sure that you lay out a lot of those expectations and a lot of the stuff that is in the contract before you even get there. Through your conversations with your prospects and through the proposal process, I let people know when I offer contracts to different types of businesses I put a lot of the basic language that they're going to find in the contract in the proposal. That way there are no surprises later. Obviously the contract will have a lot more detail in it, but that, you don't want to surprise people when they're getting ready to sign on the dotted line. You've gone through a whole process. The contract is generally the very end of the process. This is when you're getting paid or about to get paid or a down payment is put forth. Whatever it may be, you don't want them to think, oh my gosh, I didn't know all these regulations, these restrictions were going to be put in here, or I have to do this, or I'm responsible for that. You definitely need to make sure that that conversation happens before you get to the contract signing portion. A lot of things related to contracts most certainly are the backstops. And here's the thing. One, having a contract gives people more confidence in working with you. That shows that you are a professional. But as I just mentioned, having those backstops are really important. But it's also important to make sure that you don't have so much in the contract that you do scare people away. I mean, I like to keep my contracts as simple as possible because, as I mentioned in some of the other videos, you can start to punish your potential clients or your current clients, your good clients, due to the sins of old clients. One person did something really mean or poor or didn't follow through on their end of the deal, and then you decide, well, I'm going to fix that. That's never going to happen again. And you put that in the contract. Next thing you know, it's a contract full of stuff that's just all about punishing your client. You can't do that. Honestly, a good contract protects both parties, sets up those expectations so everybody knows what is going to happen. One of the things you can do certainly is make sure, well, let's talk about some of the things that you want to have in that contract that protects both parties. First of all, your rate. What is your rate? What is the expectation? Not only what is your rate, but what is there that could increase your rate? Is there a situation where your rate could be increased because you go beyond a certain amount of time? Is there a situation where your rate could be decreased? And if it's a no, you need to state that. And if you need to have additional information, if you need to, set up time frames and make sure that everyone knows the time in which you will be there, and if it's going to cost more money, again, for you to be at that location. Where are the locations? Are you photographing at your studio? That should be there. Are you photographing at a specific location? Say it's a wedding. Maybe there are multiple locations. You should list them and the time frame in which you're going to be there. So if you're going to be at a park, you're going to have a half hour at the park before a wedding or something like that. And you say it's a half hour and we will be leaving at 10:30 a.m. so we can get to the church on time, right? Put in situations where, just mention if the photographer's late, if the bride and groom is late, or, if it's a commercial job, what happens if there are rain delays? What happens if there's no client approval? All that stuff should be in there in terms of a backstop so everybody knows what is going on. It's really important. Not only how much, but what are the terms? I mean, I think it's really important that we say, look, if your terms are 30 days, but the client's it's 60 or 90 days, well, then that needs to be put in the contract. They may say, look, it's our corporate rule. It's 90 days. There's no way of getting around it. Okay, put it in the contract. So if it goes over 120, then you have some kind of recourse. What happens if it goes over 90 days? I mean, I've kind of been in the situation where, or the feeling, look, as long as I know when the client is paying, and yes, there have been clients who said it's 180 days. I mean, certainly fight those situations. But, if it's 30, 60, 90 days, I can deal with it as long as I know that is when the client is paying and that they follow through. So you certainly want to protect yourself. Okay, another word that is often used, there are two words that I'm going to share with you that are often important related to contracts. And one is called deliverables. What are the deliverables? What are you giving that client in the end? What are those deliverables? Is there an album involved? Is there a website preview involved? Are there, the ability to download so many images? Are you going to do so much work on the post-production? Maybe you put in, look, I do 5 hours worth of work. That's it. It costs, if I have to spend more time than that, I'm going to have to charge you. Maybe you say, but with your approval or something like that. Let everybody, again, know what are those boundaries and what are the deliverables ultimately. In other words, when that last check is due, when the invoice is sent, what are all the elements that one thing that I've learned through the years is that if you think of it, put it in the way. And if somebody talks to you about something over the phone and say, hey, we want to make an adjustment, but you don't want to change the contract per se, then send an email and have them return that email saying that, yes, this is okay. We're making this adjustment in the original proposal or for those deliverables. That's really important to consider. There's something else to consider, and that is the other word I'm sharing with you, and that is actually it's two words. And I have a couple of videos on this if you're interested. It's called scope creep. And that is when the scope of the project gets bigger over time, but you're not compensated for it. And there's a number of ways you can approach this. I mean, a lot of times as a photographer or any kind of creative, we have a project and we're happy that we have this wonderful new client. And then they say, hey, but could you do this one little thing? You say, well, it's a good client. I don't want to, mess them up. I don't want to, mess up the relationship. Yeah, I'll do that for them. And then there's another thing. Next thing you know, the project is maybe 10, 20, 50% larger over a period of time. And you worked for free. I mean, just picking up the phone every time or returning an email each time is costing you time and money. And you don't have to be so darn strict about it, but this is what I recommend you do. And I have more again in those videos. But what I often recommend is, look, you do what? Sometimes you have a client that wants a little thing that takes 10 minutes. And yeah, that's fine. So what you do is you either send them an invoice or an email for the amount that it would normally cost for you to do that. And let them know, no charge, 100% discount. You just need to know the value. I have to keep a record of everything I'm doing. And this time there's no charge. If you have some other things here, see on the invoice, this is how much I charge for these additional items or similar items. And you can even have a list of the other items you do, because maybe they'll want something else that's similar but not the same. And that way you set the precedent of, look, your time is valuable. Yes, you're trying to be a good person in the relationship. You're willing to do this little thing or add this little thing to keep a good client happy. However, here is the deal. And that's really important too. I mean, scope creep can be a real problem. And so that's something I would recommend. Again, you can take a look at those videos if you are interested. Okay, and something else to consider in a contract are model releases. Now, for example, if it's a bride and groom or family photos or anything like that, you should have model releases in there and have everybody sign them, or people sign for their minors, children. Because, first of all, if you want to use those photographs in your portfolio, you say, well, I own the copyright. Yes, you do, but you don't own the copyright to those people's faces. You say, well, it's my portfolio. Yes, an advertisement. When you put photos online of other people, technically you're advertising. And so, you can argue all you want either way, but if you have a model contract or a model release as part of your contract and with everyone who are in your photographs, then you're safe. And you can put that online and you can show your good work and not worry about something happening. I had somebody, I photographed actually for a newspaper. It was a freelance assignment, and it was a girl. She was in a high school, and I was photographing for the newspaper, and I actually put one of those pictures years later on my website, and it was the metadata was in the photograph. And she contacted me like 6 or 7 years later and asked me, how did I get this photo of her? Because it was kind of a posed situation. It was really interesting. She had a very nice, interesting look about her. She was wearing some traditional clothing from her heritage, and it was really pretty cool. It was a really nice image of portrait, but she was a younger person. She didn't remember the photograph, and I had it posted. She could have said, take that down. Because I was advertising in that portfolio. She did not. She was just curious how the heck I got the photograph and when was this and all that and so forth. Again, she did not remember that day, but technically, she had every single right to come back to me and say, take that down, and I would have done so. I mean, I may have been able to fight it, but is it worth that time and effort to fight something like that? So forth. So anyway, something to consider. Having those model releases as part of your regular contract can be very, very helpful. Also, property releases. If you can get a property release and you think it's part of your portfolio, and you think maybe there could be an issue, consider that. Consider a property release as part of this. Okay, something really important related to your contracts, the photo rights. Who owns the photo rights? Here, good question. I'll follow up in a few moments. So who owns the copyrights? And as you know, when you click that button, that shutter button, you own the copyright. That's automatic, unless you are an employee of a company. If you're a freelancer, if someone has hired you, you have your own small business, you own that copyright. But sometimes clients don't know that, especially if somebody is hiring a photographer for the first time. And so if you lay all that out and explain that honestly, you own the copyright, that's the standard, and they can use these images for personal use, if it's a wedding or seniors. If it's a commercial job, is it one-time use? Is it first right of publication? Is it unlimited use over a certain period of time, 2 years, 5 years? All these things are really important to lay out. So, and also to even say that, look, I want to use these images in my portfolio. Now, if you're transferring the copyright, make sure that you were stating that fact, that you're transferring the copyright, and that person paid for that right too. And it's important because you should let people know that if they're taking that copyright, if they get the copyright, they paid more for that copyright because it's of high value. Okay, Brown Image Studio. Should some sort of satisfaction guarantee be included, or just deal with that as needed? Look, I think an important part is establishing the experience or the process you're going to go through. And if you want to put a guarantee in there, it's also, I think it's good to do so in the sense of setting the expectations. This is what you're going to get. And if this doesn't happen, and this kind of gets to the other part of the conversation, what if something goes wrong? So it's not just satisfaction, but what if everything doesn't go right? What is the resolution? So in a sense, the satisfaction guarantee, we talked about deliverables. If I don't deliver all these things, here is your resolution. And now you can put that in a form of satisfaction guarantee in terms of keeping it positive. And here's the resolution on the other side. But again, going back to that basic element that we talked about at the beginning, backstops. It's a backstop. The worst that can happen is that you will get a, $100 gift certificate to Starbucks. I mean, whatever that may be. You have to set that precedent. You have to set that in the contract so people understand, what that resolution will be. Meaning, okay, if there's a rain delay, if you're a bride and groom and you break up before the wedding, do you get your money back? I mean, these are the things that you should probably consider as part of it. What happens if your camera fails? Well, you should probably have another camera with you. That would be really good. Always have a backup. Honestly, as a photographer of 30 years, let me tell you, having a backup camera is probably the best thing. Even if it's a basic camera, having something for when something does go wrong available to you is so important. And as somebody who's found himself in situations where great photographs were in front of his eyes, but not in front of his lens because he didn't have his camera with him, let me tell you, that is always a horrible, horrible feeling and scenario. Okay. Of course, again, any policies that you think are highly valuable, that you think the customer should know about, that you've stated. But like I said, don't keep punishing people based on the sins of past clients. I think that's really important. Let's see, a few more things. Put in, who are the parties? Make sure you list your name as well as your name and the client's name. Who is responsible for what? When are you getting paid, as mentioned before? But is there a deposit? How much is the standard rate of the deposit? And if there are deposits along the way, if there are certain things that are paid for, maybe the pre-production is paid for in advance. So if it's a $25,000 job and pre-production is $5,000 of it, you're requesting $5,000 or $10,000 ahead of time, making that very clear. Who pays that? When is that expected? And when maybe there's additional payment, maybe it's a, 5 down and then a week before the assignment or the wedding or whatever that may be, you put, another 5, 10 down and then the balance due when all of the deliverables are sent through. Now, here's the thing, sometimes it takes a while for clients to pick the photographs. And if that is the case, well, then definitely put in there how long the client has. And if they don't pick the selections by, 2 weeks or 30 days, what is the resolution after that? If they don't select within 30 days, the current balance due will be invoiced. And then again, how long and when do they receive that invoice? Or when should they pay it? Is it 30 days? Do you have an admin fee? Meaning if they pay within a certain time, you could put an admin fee, $250 or $50 or $1,000. It can be anything you want. Put that admin fee in. And if they pay within a specific period of time, they can take the admin fee off. What is the admin fee for? The admin fee is if you have to become a collection agency. Photographers need to remember they are not banks. So you should not feel bad about asking for the money that is owed to you or money up front to help pay for expenses. Yes, you are in business, but you're not in the banking business. And if somebody owes you money within 30 days or a specific period of time, they should most certainly pay within that period of time. And if they don't, you have to call. That takes your time. If you have to write letters, if you have to hire an attorney, whatever it may be, that admin fee helps to cover your time cost for the collection. So, all right. Wrapping up with the last bit of questions. If anyone has any more questions related to contracts and proposals, I said I would talk about if you never need a contract. The technical answer is yes, you probably should always have a contract. I sometimes, if it's a good client, or if there's not a lot of money on the line other than my time, meaning, look, it's a half-day project and I've given them a specific rate of a per image rate. And I often, and as many of you know, if you've looked through a lot of my videos, I do per image pricing, and I consider myself the no risk photographer. The low risk photographer, meaning if you don't like any of my images, you don't pay anyway. So I have no real concern about that. So as long as they understand the proposal and they sign off on the proposal, I'll consider that my form, the contract. That's the agreement. It's very simple. Am I putting myself at risk when I do that? The answer is 100% yes, of course. And I have to understand that risk when I do that. And the fact is, I have little recourse if things go really bad. But if I have a lot of expenses, a lot of pre-production expenses, I'm going to ask for money, and I'm going to even have a contract. If things are getting complex, definitely have a contract. Okay, that's it. I will see you. It'll be Wednesday, 12 Eastern Standard Time is when I think it'll be. If it changes, I'll just check on Twitter. I'll share on Twitter at Rosh Sillars. You can ask questions at Rosh Sillars on Twitter. And of course, you can do so here in the comments, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified when I go live. And lastly, if you want to catch me live again, I will be live again on Mondays, every Monday, Eastern Standard Time, to talk marketing. And that's not a photography focused show. That's a general show. I talk about marketing strategies to help us grow our businesses. And so that's what I do. And it's also combined with my podcast, which you can find over at roshsillars.com. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Brown Image Studios. Thank you for being here in your question. And let's grow our businesses as profitable businesses. We'll talk to you next time.